Hello everyone, welcome back to another review. Today I'm actually doing something new. I think I'm probably going to use this new format for Team of the Season because it just makes more sense for me to do it. Essentially what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reviewing multiple players from the same league or from the same nationality, or however I can link them into one squad and do like a mass player review instead of just doing one player review at a time. Now because I'm going to go through most of the special cards in this episode, that means that it might be a little bit longer than what I usually do if only having 5 minutes, but I think it's more enjoyable and it just makes more sense for me to do it this way. So we're going to start with this team. You can see it's a 4-1-2-1-2, but I actually switched after the first game because I realized the 4-1-2-1-2 didn't get the best out of some key players that I was reviewing. So I switched to a 4-3-3, the one with 2 center mids and 1 cam, and I took out Sinclair and put in Dele Alli at center mid. But this formation was a lot better for getting the best out of, namely, Jonjo Shelvey and Matt Ritchie, the two Team of the Seasons from Newcastle. But we're going to start the review with Burgess, the 64 bronze center back that I actually pack pulled, the first Team of the Season I pulled on stream, and he's a pretty good card overall. That's just like the first thing I'll say about him. As a comparison, I would say he's honestly a cheap Smalling. Now, it's not really cheap because Smalling's probably only make 2 or 3 more K than what Burgess is right now. But Burgess could be important. He could be useful if you want to try to fulfill the weekend league requirements or the team of the season Rudy daily knockout tournament requirements where you have to have 3 non-gold players. He would possibly be good for that. Now starting off with the pros, I would say strength and size. That's kind of what makes him like Smalling because he has the strength and the size. Usually those two go hand in hand. That allows him to just box out, seal out a lot of the attacking players even when they're faster than him. The size is also important because it allows him to win a lot of headers. I don't think he actually lost any headers, even when we were playing against some taller offensive players, some center forwards, still didn't lose too many headers against them. The size also helps because it means he has longer legs so he can tackle people even if they get by him. If for some reason in this game, if you have long legs, if you're a tall center back, you're able to just have like a huge wingspan, leg span I guess you could call it, of area that you can tackle. His speed is also pretty good. That's kind of why he's like Smalling. Now he's not as fast as Smalling, especially when you add a chem style to the two. Smalling's I think 77 base card stats and Burgess is like a 65 or something. But in my opinion, you don't really need anything like 85 pace on a center back. So when you add a shadow, that would go up to around the high 70s for Burgess. And that's pretty solid for him. And finally, the biggest pro that I can probably think of is his price. He goes for discards, 6.6k. So if you try him out, you don't like him, you lose maybe 100k. Just think of it as a loan. And if he actually does go up in price because people realize they need non-gold players for the weekend league, he will be a lot better for you. He could actually be a solid investment. Now the cons, he's slightly clumsy. That's something that you don't really experience too much with Smalling in my opinion, because Smalling for some reason turns really well, turns better than a lot of strikers do. But in Burgess's case, he doesn't always do that. Sometimes he falls over. He's not too great as compared to Smalling. And the other con that I would say about him, he's not always in the perfect position. I think he might have high attacking work rates, not too sure about that, but it's not like a huge deal because he's not always out of position, but just sometimes on counterattacks, he would be the main person that would allow a through ball to go by because he wouldn't be in a solid straight line. So overall for Burgess, I would give him 8.3 British biscuits out of 10. Very edible, very good deal. Next, we're going to move on to the first gold player of the review. It's Jonjo Shelvey, the team of the season for Newcastle. And my one line about him, I would say he's a very good player, but you can't play him as a lone CDM. He's much better as a second CDM, but there aren't too many formations that use that. In my opinion, you should just use him as a center mid. So the pros about him, this is what I always look for in a center mid: strength, speed, and size. Now the strength and size, like I said with Burgess, those go hand in hand. They allow him to win a lot of headers because he's tall, and also he's strong enough to hold off other center mids. But then the speed is also important. It's not like he's blazing fast, but he has enough speed to get to players get to the ball first, and then seal off the player, which is very important in this game for a center mid. The other thing about Jonjo Shelvey is he has very good passing. He has a very good right foot, so his passing, his long shots are very solid. I really can't say too many bad things about him. Another good thing about him, his name, Jonjo, pretty much the best name in this review. And then the last big plus for him would be his price. he essentially goes for discard, so think of the whole Burgess loan thing again. If you buy Jonjo Shelvey, you don't really like him, then you can just sell him. He might even be a good investment. Once he goes out of packs, he could go up in price, but at the most you're going to lose like 5k, and that's not really too much of a loss. Now the cons that I would say about him, these are cons that only really apply if you're going to be playing him as a lone CDM, which I just say don't do that because he's not good at that position. But his positioning and work rates, his work rates are medium, but it plays more like high medium, in my opinion, or like a medium low, because he's not always in perfect center defensive mid position. He's not a Din Janker. But he does, if you want that center mid to kind of burst forward, to get in position to shoot, get into position to get crosses in, center the ball, he's very good for that. So overall, I would give him 8.5 Jonjos out of 10. That's not a lot of hair, but it's a lot of man. Next, we're going to be moving on to Matt Ritchie, his Newcastle teammate, who also got a team of the season. Now, my one line about him, I would say he's a good player if you like this kind of player. Particularly for me, I do like this player being a left footer who doesn't have too much pace, so that means he's not too expensive, but he's got a solid left foot. So the pros, great left foot, like I just said. That means that he can cross the ball, he can whip in balls on corners, he has great long shots, he can do finesses and also the kind of driven trivela action that really, I mean, his long shots are pretty OP in my opinion. Another thing about him, he has the 4-star weak foot, so while his long shots, his finesses aren't astounding on his right foot, they're still very dangerous, so the opposing players will have to close you down if you're in position to do that. He's got good dribbling in tight spaces, so that he doesn't have the 4-star skills, but he can still like shield the ball and move the ball swiftly around players, around defenders' legs, so that can get him out of tight spaces. And the last thing, his price, yet again, because he's not too fast, because he plays in the championship and he's Scottish, so that's kind of hard to link. That means that his price is lower. I think he's going for a round discard, so if you don't like him, just sell him off, you're not going to lose too much. Now the cons, he does have some cons about him because I played him as a right mid in the first match and he basically didn't exist because he's not going to track back for you, he's not that kind of player. But as a right mid playing kind of deeper, he's not really going to get too far forward because he doesn't have the pace to do so. That's why you have to play him, in my opinion, as a right winger, right forward, because he's essentially going to be playing kind of like a striker, except a wide version of that striker, and he can still do a good job there, but he's not going to be like the most overpowered right winger, right mid, right forward you've ever seen. Because he doesn't have the skills, he also doesn't have the acceleration or the dribbling to beat most fullbacks one-on-one. That means that it's going to be difficult to do that, to get by him and then play a square ball like a lot of people do. That's why a Martial is so good, because he's got the strength and the speed to get to the byline and then center it. And my boy Matt Ritchie doesn't really have that. So overall, I would give him a 7 Scottish hens out of 10. I kind of consider him in the Tauven mold, except Tauven had the strength and the speed to beat players and to get further forward, and his finesse, in my opinion, was also better. So he's not quite to Tauven's standard, but he's a solid player, 7 Scottish hens like I said. Next player we're going to go to is the silver left mid Morris, who actually packed his 64 overall inform on Bronze to Glory for the Weekend League rewards, but in this 74 silver team of the season version, I would say he's okay if you're using him for a very specific position. The only way I would ever use this card would be is if I'm using a 3 at the back formation and I need a left mid who can essentially play as a left wing back kind of thing, where he's getting forward a little bit, providing a little bit of offensive support, but mainly he's tracking back. So it's difficult to do pros and cons for this kind of player because he's going to have a lot of cons if you're going to use him out of the position that I would recommend, which would be as a left winger trying to kind of attack, because he doesn't have any kind of skills, acceleration, pace, dribbling, shooting. Doesn't really have anything like that that will make him a good left winger. But if you're playing him as like a left back, left wing back, then he tracks back well, he's strong, so he can have some good strong challenges, he's good at tackling. He does win some header, I'd say he wins the majority of headers because he's so strong, but he's not too tall and he's not going to out-jump most players. And even though he's a silver team of the season, he can still seal out gold attackers and defenders. So overall, I would say 8 out of 10 if you're going to use him as a left winger, left wing back, left mid in the 3 at the back formation. But if you're going to try to use him as a left winger, I would give him like a 1 out of 10. Alright, next we're going to go to the final silver team of the season that we have, and it's Watkins, Ollie Watkins, who I'm probably going to be biased about this because I packed him in a bronze pack, but because I might be biased, I'm going to try not to have any of the bias seep through, because this is, of course, an honest player review. Now the first pro is that he's the best player in FIFA. Okay, well really his pros would be that he's got good speed, he's got good acceleration, he's got solid dribbling that's very quick, the ability to shift the ball around players. His first touch is also very solid if you're going to try to do the knock the ball forward to try to run onto it, like if you got a one-on-one and trying to beat a center back. He can beat Smalling. He's not a Smalling killer, he doesn't get that badge, but he's still quick enough, fast enough to beat most center backs. I would also say that his positioning is very solid. If you want to play him as a cam, he's always going to be far forward enough to play in that position. His passing though isn't too great. If you want to kind of play like an Eriksson where you're just going to pick out balls, he's not going to do that too much. He's more like the kind of player who plays almost like another striker, who's just going to run in behind the defense. He can play quick 1-2s though, which is good. Just don't expect him to pick the defense apart with passes. Another pro, which is kind of a pro and con depending on how you see it, is that he tracks back a lot, which is kind of surprising because I just mentioned previously that his positioning was good, but I noticed several times, on several occasions, he would track back very far, and because he has the pace, it allows him to do so. So he can win the ball back almost like a center mid would, which is a pro in my opinion because he has the stamina to keep it up for the full 90 minutes. But some people might not really like that happening too much because they'd rather just have their cam stay up front. The cons, I would say he doesn't have any skills, 2-star skill moves, 3-star weak foot also. So he doesn't have skills, doesn't have a great weak foot if you're trying to do finesses or long shots. His right foot is solid finesses and long shots though, so that's always good. Another con would be that his strength, although it's good, it's not going to hold off Smalling. That's kind of why he doesn't get the Smalling killer badge. Overall though, best player in the FIFA, I'd say 11 out of 10. And finally, we turn our attention to team of the season, Dwight Gayle. Now, I was hoping that he was going to be the most overpowered striker, because if you just look at his stats on Foothead, pretty much every box, every stat that is important for a striker, for an attacker in this game is checked. But that's not what happened. For me, I would say he's pretty good, but he didn't have the it factor. Whatever the it factor is, he just didn't have it. And for me, I would say the it factor is that he doesn't have the breakaway pace to really get by players. Even though he has 94 pace, I think, on his face card, that didn't really seem to shine through for me. So his strength is able to hold off most center backs, but it's not the kind of strength that I see sometimes with like a Bash Dost, that even though Bash Dost didn't have the speed, he had the kind of strength that would push the center back backwards. If you know if you've seen that animation before, the center back tries to run, but then the attacker is so strong that he actually stops running. That adds a lot of pace to a player, although it won't really shine through. And Dwight Gayle, although he has like 84 strength or something, that didn't happen once. Now, sometimes this isn't a problem if the player is very fast, like Christian Teo comes to mind. Even though he actually, I think, has slightly lower pace and slightly lower acceleration than Dwight Gayle, for some reason he's able to just drift through defenses on my Upgrade FC account, and Dwight Gayle didn't do that once. Everything else though, finishing, once he gets into that position, finishing is like 97 or something, long shots in the 90s, so he's like a solid card. If you just want to just shoot it from anywhere, he's probably going to have it go in. The thing that just bothered me so much was he kind of is billed as the pace player who will get in behind, and then you're going to obviously be able to finish anything because his shooting stats are so good, but he just didn't get into those positions often enough for me. So overall, I would say try the card out because it's possible that I was just using him incorrectly, and because of his card stats, if you look at the card stats alone, this card is worth around 300k in my opinion, 300 to 400k. You're not going to find a much better looking stat card for a striker in this game, and he only goes for around 100k. That could be because of the league and not the nationality, because he's English, so it's kind of easy to link about that, but because he plays in the championship for Newcastle, that could ward off some potential buyers. Also, because he's still in packs, he's probably going to be cheaper than if you try to wait until after he goes out of packs and then you try him out. So try him out. You can always sell him back. There's a potential that he could go to around, let's say, 90k, but it's far-fetched for me to see him going lower than like 90k because of just how good his stats look. Overall, I'm going to give him not a rating because I don't want to really influence your opinion too much, because he could be one of the best players in this game. It just didn't work out for me. Hope you liked this review. If you did, drop a like on the video. Tell me who you want to review next. I might do it, possibly, if it's a good suggestion. If it's not a good suggestion, I'll let you know.